Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to welcome you once again here in the occasion of this new webinar organized by Easy Fares Italy. In Milan is now 10:32 and we are live and we are going to start our meeting that is a very special one for me. And I will explain it, I will explain why later. We started organizing webinars in the packaging field since last June, and we call them Packaging Trend Talks. During this period of time, we have been run more than 10 webinars, but let me repeat once again that this one is a very special one because for the first time we cross our domestic borders and we enter in an international arena. The title of this morning explains very well what we are going to talk about. The title sounds like how to design an eye-catching luxury packaging starting from foil. It's a challenge, it's a problem hard to solve. That's why I'm not alone on this stage. I would be very afraid to be here all alone, but I can count on the experience of my guests. First of all, let me thank them for being here and help me in explain how to design an eye-catching luxury packaging starting from foil. The first speaker who is going to deliver his speech is Vincent Villager. Vincent is a designer and is based in London, and he worked as a consultant in the luxury and beauty packaging field. He has a very great experience in the field. Vincent has more than 20 years of experience, and when I say that, I mean that he spent 8 years, isn't it, Vincent? 8 years at Burberry, where he set up and led the packaging design team. Working for the company, he did a lot of great jobs. For instance, he helped to design fragrances like My Burberry and Burberry Bespoke, among many others, of course. Prior to join Burberry, Vincent worked together with his wife, producing designs for many beauty brands, including Givenchy and Yves Saint Laurent. During his professional life, Vincent has won a lot of prizes, and I cannot have time to list all, but I just mention one, which is the Gold Pen Award. Vincent will share with us the process by which it is possible to pass from a simply creative idea to a real project in a successful way, of course. So with the approach of, by the help of Vincent, we will reach a project, a well-done project. But to transform a project into reality, we need to start with an industrial process. That's why we ask Connie Dreyer to be here with us, just to go further in the industrial process. So Connie is based in Copenhagen, and she is the CEO of Dreyer Cliché. Again, also Connie has a very long experience in her business. She has been working in Dreyer Cliché in over 25 years, and I could say since last century, because it was in 1994, she is functioning as the CEO of the company. Also, Connery, as well as Vincent, has been globally recognized for her work within the graphic industry with several awards. Today, Connie will share with us the commitment in helping designers and in the creative process, and she will show also with the support of a very interesting video, how to prepare a cliche for producing eye-catching packaging based also on foil. Once the cliche is done, we have to print, we have to realize the packaging. So we pass to the last but not least speaker, who is Paul Harvey. So we go back to the UK, who will explain us how to get the final packaging. Paul is the managing director of Foilco, and again, he can count on a great experience in all areas of business at the family business company, that's Foilco, who we could say that offers one of the largest range of stamping foils in the industry. Alongside product development, Paul now focuses on education and support to creatives and printers. Even Paul will going to show us a video showing the details of the performance of printing machines to obtain the final packaging. Okay, that's the program for this morning. We start at the sharp, and each speaker will have more or less about 10 minutes for the speech. We will be very glad to answer to questions to our attendants, so I beg you not to be shy and write your questions in the question area that you can find on the right side of your screen. We decided just a few minutes ago to put questions at the end of all the three speeches, because we consider that one speech is just very close related to the next one. So it's a whole process, and you can have a general idea just at the end of the three speeches. So I promised myself this morning to be brief, and it wasn't exactly a success, but anyway, I pass immediately my virtual microphone to Vincent for his speech. I thank you all very much for the attention, and I ask, please, Vincent, take the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, this is good. Thank you very much for the very kind introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to talk this morning. I hope all your viewers will find it interesting. You've introduced this talk with the title of how do you design packaging with foil, and I'd like to take it a step back, if that's all right, to get us started with the question of why. Why is it useful to have foil as part of your toolbox when designing packaging? And I think the first thing to remember and the first thing to realize is that packaging really is a three-dimensional discipline. It's not just about applying graphics onto a box. It's about thinking about the experience and the three-dimensionality of it. I've come to packaging by accident, but originally I'm a product designer, and so for me, it's really natural to think of packaging as something that is three-dimensional. And what that means in the context of this morning is that tactility becomes really important. And so I love to find ways when designing packaging to add this tactile component to the experience. And of course, that can come from the structure of the box, that can come from the material, but also it comes from the processes that we use. And foil is one of these processes that gives you instant gratification. It gives you that instant understanding that somebody has thought about this and that you're entering an experience which is 100% tactile, physical, analog. You could not do that on screen. And so that's really important to understand, that the motivation 9 times out of 10, in my case, for using foil on packaging is because it's a great contributor to a tactile experience. And having said that, you having the years of experience, you understand that you can use foil in a way that will range from a very bold, very impactful effect that you're going to get. So I've got a few examples here with me to show you. So for instance, when I designed this box set for a set of Elton John vinyls, I threw everything at it. So you've got the material, which is great, but this is all about the great big expanse of metallic foil. And on a canvas material, there's just no way you could achieve that with a metallic ink. I'll see if you can see it in all its glory. So that's an example of using foil to really make a bold statement. But on the other end of the spectrum, you can also use foil to underline the subtlety of the experience that you want to convey. So for this jewelry box I designed a couple of years ago, it's all about the reveal and the messaging. So I've used here a clear foil over a suede just to kind of highlight a really subtle messaging. So it's something that is taking a step back. It's not getting in the way of the experience. And so it's really interesting to understand that foil will afford you that kind of spectrum of something that's going to be really in your face or really, really subtle. And that's one of the reasons that I love using foil. Another thing that really is useful to understand, and that I think makes foil a great material to use, which I've touched upon very briefly, is that you can apply it where print cannot be applied. So I've mentioned the example of book cloth, but that really comes into its own when, like myself, you design things like fragrances, for instance, is a lot of what I do, or fashion. And when you launch a fragrance, it's not just about the design of the bottle. The launch of a fragrance comes with the bottle, and then you've got the outer pack, then you've got point of sale, and then all the way to retail environments. And what that means is to have a material that is available to you that will work across all of those various channels that you have to consider, will enable you to guarantee a consistency of execution across these channels. And so that means the story you've chosen to tell with the launch of this fragrance is going to run through completely seamlessly from the bottle to the pack to the counter to any furniture, to anything you want to do. And there's a great deal of value in this, because you can spend a great deal of effort trying to make sure that this print matches this fabric, matches this foil. And so if you can, as a designer, reduce the palette of materials you have to use to deliver your story, then that's a great benefit. And really, it's all about the consideration of packaging as the voice of your brand. If you're a brand and you have your story to tell and you have your values to communicate, you have also nowadays a reducing amount of physical channels to do that in. There's fewer stores, more and more brands are digital only, and so packaging finds itself as being one of the few remaining tactile analog channels through which a brand can express what it stands for. And packaging and foil on packaging is a really good way of doing this, because of the variety of effects that you can get. So Paul later on will cover more about the availability of the range and what you can do in terms of the multitude of colors and finishes, but it's almost infinite. And it's really, it's a really useful tool to have for a brand to be able to express what it stands for. That's from the brand's perspective. And of course, from a designer's perspective, another benefit is the kind of what you see is what you get effect that you get with foil. I know I can look at a Foilco swatch book and pick a foil, and I will know that this is what I'm going to get. So, with print, you will need to have a test run, and you will need to check how the ink has come out, how your printer has interpreted it, how it's come out against this particular stock you have chosen. There's an immediacy to foil that will again guarantee you a result. And so it's very, very easy to just run a test and you know what you're going to get. And so in terms of somebody who's in my seat of having to not only create the design, but also convince a client that this design is the right way to go, being able to run a test and show a client this is what you're going to get, and know for a fact that that's what will come out the production line is a great benefit. So that's me kind of crossing over a little bit from being a purely creative to somebody who also has an interest in production, and making sure that whatever I design comes out as close as possible to what the original vision was. So that's a really, really useful aspect of foil. And so the way that we thought we'd demonstrate that today, I'm going to introduce briefly now, was we thought we'd run a little case study for you. We understand that it's not always 100% clear what the process should be to somebody who's not really had to be involved in packaging before. And so that's why we chose to run this as a case study, from design to manufacturing of the dies, of the tooling, to the production. And so what we've done for you today is we've created a series of collateral, which we have done. My series just kicked in when I said series. A series of collateral just for this seminar, to kind of show you how it goes from creation through to a printed piece of material. And so what we've done is we've taken, just for a bit of fun, we've taken a few of the bottles that I've designed over the year, with my various teams. And so what I've done is I've created 2D versions of those bottles, and we have applied those as a three-dimensional fluted tool onto card. And this goes back to the point I was making when I opened up about tactility. These bottles, it's not just the shape. You've got the texture of the ribbons. You've got what's happening in the cap. You've got the shape of the cavity inside the glass, and you've got the logo here. With this one, you've got the faceting shape. You've got the check. So you've got a lot of detailing that goes into these. And so we thought we'd try and have a little fun in how do you go about expressing these tactile elements of the bottles onto something that is essentially a flat sheet of paper. And so that's why I will hand it over to Connie, who will show you visually how we went about doing that. So Connie will take it from the point where I sent her a design for this collateral based on these, and all I had to do literally was send a few pictures of these and a basic line drawing, and that's where the magic then happened between Connie and Paul, who will now take over.
Thank you very much, Vincent. It was really interesting, and I saw a lot of questions that we will cover later on, but I see that our attendees are very happy to discuss with you details about environment and specific question about how to design, how to put into reality the creative idea.
It would be great to have questions, because I hate it at the end when there's no questions. So keep.
No, don't be afraid about that, because we have till now more or less 10 questions in a few minutes. So I think we will have a very, very short time to answer to all of them. But anyway, I think now it's time to give the microphone to Connie, who will go a step ahead in our process. Thank you, Connie.
Good morning, and thank you, Teresa, for the introduction. I'll tell you a little bit about the process, as Teresa just mentioned, but first I will tell you a little bit about who we are. Holographic is a family-based business, and we are located in Copenhagen, as Teresa said, with more than 70 years of experience. 90% of our businesses today export, mostly in Europe, but we are also supplying around the globe. Holographic has a strong focus on the environment in our production processes, and we therefore stay away from using copper-etched dies. We supply CNC brass, which we engrave and has been produced without any use of chemicals. We see that designers are very interested to understand the creative process, as Vincent just briefly touched. They are talking much more directly with us. And this involvement is a great thing, as it helps us and the designer to push the boundaries of designs. We consider all the designers, customers and end users as being our partners, and we have a very close working relationship with most of them. We all have the same goal, to get the best out of the design. And therefore, we recommend always to talk to us early in the design stage, as we did with Vincent, so we together can discuss how to reach the desired result. We also often ask for advices on how a given design can be realized and produced with hot foil and embossing, or if we should see any issues that can cause a problem later on in the production phase. Questions about standard hot foiling cliches with many details. It can be line thicknesses. Is a letter big enough? We want to foil negative text. Is that good enough, the artwork we have for that? How will I deliver a file for you if I want to have structure in? How do I prepare a file for multi-level, and so on? And this is where we come in. Added value and challenging foil and embossing is our field of experience and expertise, and we always focus on this item. We are really trying to offer as much education as possible to the processes, and I hope that the video you will see now will give you an idea of the process for a multi-level embossing cliche, from the very start on the concept to the final product of the Burberry body design. So, Lara, will you please start the video? It all starts with an image. It can be anything from an artistic image to a four-color, as in this case. The four-color shows the shapes that we need to achieve. And this is the vector artwork created from the four-color. When we receive a four-color image without a vector file, we will define the area to be embossed by tracing the original artwork. This is what you see here. This will ensure that we have a perfect fit to the image for the final embossing on the cardboard. We define each area with a color, and individual shapes will after that be added to each color. There's many ways to create a 3D file. One is to trace, where we create color area to define the shapes and depth in the image, exactly as you see here. As you can imagine, this is a very time-consuming process to draw up all these small items. Another way would be used if we have to sculpt a face. In any case, you will still have to provide us with a photo where we will create the 3D interpretation and send you that for approval. We also create shapes and depth from a vector file. This is what we in this case receive from Vincent. Here you see the programmer create diamond or facet shapes on the entire bottle frame from the vectors. And also on the word body, we have used the vectors to create the shapes and the depth. The Burberry text shows how to create the shape from a color trace. You can see he pick up the color and then he indicate the shapes. We build up the relief piece by piece. We continue to define shapes and depths until we have met the given expectations. The 3D simulation will be sent to you for approval, which you will be able to rotate 360 degrees in your Acrobat to see if all angles and details are as expected. After approval, we flip the image to prepare the production. Then we start creating a tool path. A tool path means that we define which tool that has to be used where on the image. It starts with a very rough tool, takes away the bigger part of the metal. And this is still going on the computer screen. Big rough tools to larger areas and very fine tools to small and fine details will be specified. For this specific job, we have actually used 6 different tools. The tool path process is very important, as this will simulate the final result on the engraved multi-level embossing tool. And it also ensures that the tool we have used for this job can go into all the finest details. When the programmer has ended the simulation of the tool path, he will check and compare to the 3D file that the designer has approved to see if everything is as expected. And he will then send the 3D, the program to the CNC machine for the actual engraving. What you then will see is a video that was taken while the job was running on the CNC machine. You can see that the first part has already been removed, as I said, with this very big tools to take away the big part of the metal. And this is the tool required for this part of the image after the bigger tool has removed all the metal in the larger area. The last tool that will be used on this job is the very finest tool with a ball nose diameter of only 0.1 millimeter to complete the smallest details in the designs. It's almost as thin as a needle. We never stay away from using this finest tool to achieve the very best quality in the finishing. Therefore, we can achieve very high standard of details. Magic happens. The multi-level embossed cliché is done. A counterforce is produced to fit the brass image. And voila, the cliché are ready for the next step in the production phase that Paul Hornby will review. That's all from me, Paul.
Thank you very much, Connie. Thank you for your speech. Thank you for showing us this really interesting video. Sometimes when you look at the packaging, you cannot imagine how is the job that you have to do to achieve this kind of results. And it's very interesting to understand, to touch with our hands what is going to happen before having in our hands the packaging. And to continue on this way, I would like to invite Paul to join us on the stage, just to cover the final part of the process. So we started with the creative idea. We put this idea on a sheet of paper or on a screen, just to give the reality of this idea. We continue with the cliché industry, and now we are going to the printing industry. So please, Paul, join us.
Thanks, Teresa. Thanks, Vincent and Connie. Yeah, so hopefully I'll finish off this whole journey that we've been through together. Like you say, I'm from Foil Co. We're suppliers of hot stamping foil. Hot stamping foil is used on a lot of packaging. It gives a product pick-me-up appeal. In a supermarket, there's a 2.2 second decision-making process per purchase. What foil does is it catches the eye, pulls the consumer to that product, and it hopefully aids with the push to sale. As Vincent said, adding hot stamping foil also gives a luxurious look to high-end packaging, and he's created some incredible bits of artwork and packaging with our foils. So what we did is we decided, we put our heads together and we put a good way of showing you the way of using foil, and the collaboration between us all is to bring Vincent, Dry Cliché, and ourselves together. Vincent worked his magic and came up with some design. Then Connie, as you've just seen, did the incredible work on turning that into a 3-dimensional shape. We asked Vincent then to choose some colours from our range of hot stamping foils. He also chose a selection of coloured boards. We decided to use the boards all of the same thickness, so what we could do is feed through the different colours of boards all at the same time with no change of setup on the machinery. And then the beauty of hot stamping foil is you're simple, within a few seconds, change your roll of foil and you get a completely different effect. So once Vincent had done this part and Connie done her magic with the die, it was then over to sending the dies over to Foilco, and we have an in-house testing facility here where we put all these things together. So Teresa, if you just play the video, and I'll let you see the magic take shape. Or I can just talk a little bit, it's fine.
Lara, it's not my turn, it's Lara's turn. So
Okay.
Lara, could you please share the video? Otherwise, I will share it.
No problem. And as discussed, this video shows you the whole foiling process.
I will share it.
Thanks, Teresa.
Okay.
The wonder of technology.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I got it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So as we can see from that video, we've then taken Vincent's design, Connie's cliches, the dies, and then we've foiled them onto a variety of boards. There's a huge variety of foil finishes available. Vincent's referred to our D4 catalogue that we show around, and so we asked Vincent to choose a range of foils to use. This here you'll see is a metallic gold foil. Metallic gold is still the most popular finish in packaging, and there's a lot of available shade now in gold and satin gold, so this actually helps you differentiate between brands. You could then see, thank you, Vincent, look at that perfect model for me, demonstrating the D4. Lara, if we just move on to the next photograph. Thank you very much. So here what we're showing is one of our metallic colours. They're becoming increasingly popular as well. What we find is the metallic effect still attracts the consumer to the brand, but now with the metallic effect range that we have, the brand can actually select a colour similar to their existing colour palette. The next choice that we asked Vincent to make was the holographic, which I'm sure you can see gives a 3D movement of colours and gives a spectacular look in the video. This catches the eye a lot more than metallic colours or metallic effects, and it's used on products where there's a huge competition on the supermarket shelves to actually differentiate quicker and easier in packaging such as toothpaste market. Next, what we chose next was a pigment foil. Pigment foils, as Vincent's already touched upon, are becoming increasingly popular. Brands using these on uncoated and recycled boards, where normally you'd actually have to put several layers of ink onto a board to get the opacity. But the opacity is already within the foil. It's a dry, solvent-free process. So just with one pass, you already get the opaque white there that you can see on the sheet. The next range that we went to was pearlescent foils. These give a much more subtle but luxurious look to packaging. And what we've done recently to improve on this range of foils, we've developed pearls that actually change colour when you actually move around them. This engages with the consumer more, so that the pack that they're looking at changes colour. They can pick it up and see the movement and engage with the pack. And then finally, the last range that we did is our gloss clear range. Gloss clear foils are a good alternative to using a spot UV. When we find, particularly on uncoated material, the spot UV would actually soak into the board. By using a gloss clear, with it being a dry process, the foil just sits there on top and you're able to get these luxurious looks. We asked Vincent last year to tell us what foil he would like in the world that didn't exist. And he actually requested, said the gloss clear is really good, but what he wanted was actually a slight tint within the gloss clear to have more differentiation on packaging. We love a challenge and we love to hear from what designers like. So we actually thanked Vincent for that, and we went ahead and made Clarity, which is a new range that we just launched last year. And then you can see, this is what we created, all these finished effects here. And so some spectacular designs there that Vincent has created. And then we've turned them into all these boards here. Now, a huge concern for us all these days is, and it absolutely should be, and I see from all the questions that are being posed, is the environment and how we minimize our carbon footprint. We have to do this. You know, global warming is real. I won't go on to a big speech about that, but it is. We all need to do our part to help the environment. What we've done with hot stamping foil is we've actually had an independent study carried out which showed that if you have 80% coverage of foil on a board, the foil is such a thin layer that it can actually still be repulped, and the foil dissipates in the repulping process, so you can actually produce a new recycled board. When I was actually speaking to Vincent earlier this week, he came up with a great phrase, so I'm going to steal it now off him, that there's actually less metal used on the front or cover of a brochure than there is actually in the staple which you use to hold the sheets together. So hot stamping foil is used on packaging. You can repulp that board. You should use foil. What I'm also proud to say is Foilco is a supplier of hot stamping foils. We were the first supplier in the world to sign up to a zero foil to landfill initiative. And I said that other stamping foil suppliers should do the same thing. You know, we're all in this together. And what we do is we offer a service whereby we'll actually collect the foil back from our customers and we convert it into a thing called SRF, which is solid recovered fuel. The thin polyester carrier that's used for hot stamping foil has a really high calorific value, and it's used as fuel in facilities such as cement kilns. 12 tons of hot stamping foil replaces 10 tons of fossil fuel. So it really is, we're looking at hot stamping foil and seeing how we can make it the most environmentally conscious and friendly product around. If people want the certification on the repulpability of the board, or want to hear more about our zero foil to landfill, please just message me and I'm more than happy to talk to you about the environmental aspect of foiling. So really, just to recap where we've all come through on this short journey, foil gives a brand pick-me-up appeal, and it does lead to increased sales. We've seen that in many, many studies. It gives a luxury look to high-end packaging. there's a huge range of foil finishes available. And naturally, of course, I'm going to plug it on. Foilco has one of the most diverse and greatest ranges, so please request a catalogue from us. But above all, hot stamping foil is an environmentally conscious option, especially when used with our Zero Foil to Landfill initiative. So I hope you've seen today the benefit of what we've shown here, which is a designer and a brand working alongside a dye manufacturer, alongside a foil supplier, and then the printing process. And what, by using or speaking to ourselves and to dry a cliche at the start of the design process, you can create the best designs possible. And this just shows the power of collaboration. This is what we came up with within what we've done a week. Just imagine the possibilities of, by speaking to us further, what we can actually help brands do out there in the packaging market. I would say as well, we've created all these lovely designs. If anybody wants any of these sheets so they can actually see them firsthand, pick them up, see how wonderful they are, please send us a message, send Vincent or Connie a message, and we'll get some of these lovely effects sent to you. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for explaining us the printing process. And I said we have many questions which cover a very wide range of aspects. So I tried to put them together just to enter in a specific arguments. The first one I would like to address you is the one that comes from Nathan Bradley, and he writes, we're seeing more cold foiling capabilities coming on stream, which appear to provide cost and environmental benefits. But what are the limitations versus traditional hot foil stamping? I don't know who is going to answer.
Shall I take that one?
Okay, Paul.
I'll have the first question. Yeah, because we supply a range of cold foils as well. Cold foil came to the market maybe about 25 years ago and has developed more and more through the years. What I would say really is cold foil is not an alternative to hot stamping foil. Cold foil really is an alternative to metallic inks and to lamination film. The beauty of hot stamping foil is, like Vincent said earlier, because hot stamping foil uses heat and pressure, it will deboss the surface slightly. So it will mean wherever it's foiled, it's still got that bright luster, that bright finish to it. With cold foil, it's a great product. We sell it. It's available in the market, but you really need a very smooth surface to get the bright effect from it. You also can't actually put it onto many textured surfaces because you can't get into the embossing. So cold foil certainly has its place, as hot foil does. For people that don't know, cold foil is where you put down an ink and then you press the foil onto that ink, usually dry the ink with a UV varnish, with a UV lamp, pull the foil away. In terms of the environmental credentials, to be quite honest, they've both got exactly the same credentials. If you put cold foil or hot foil onto a board, you can still repulp that board or that label. And again, if you work with us on the Zero Foil to Landfill initiative, we will take back the used cold foil and turn it into an alternative to fossil fuel. I hope that's answered the question.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Our audience needs Stefan Allen asked, starting from foil, does it include laminate too?
Laminate is a completely different thing to hot stamping foil. When most people think of a laminate, it's usually a polyester or polypropylene film that is glued and bonded onto the packaging. When you use a laminate, laminates have their place, but when you glue it onto there, what most people then do is they then use an opaque white ink to block out most of that laminate. So you're using a large amount of ink. You also, oh, there goes one of my pieces. What you also find is that by putting a laminate onto packaging, more often than not, you cannot recycle that board. It's also confusing for the consumer. They don't know what film that is on the board. So whether it's a polyester or an acrylic, an acetate or a laminate, they look at film and they realize they can't recycle it. There is a place for lamination. but it is not the same as hot stamping foil or cold foil. Hot stamping foil and cold foil just go down in selective areas, so only covers where you need it to be. Laminate covers a lot, and then you have to print over it.
I can add to that a little bit on laminate. A lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is helping brands remove lamination from their packaging, because obviously it's not as straightforward as saying we used to have a lamination, now we don't want the plastic, so we'll just remove the laminate, because obviously the laminate is here to do a job. It provides a lot of strength and performance. So a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment is helping brands removing that plastic. But what that means is working really closely with the paper mills to develop papers that will have an added performance and allow you to have a bag, for instance, that is as performing without the laminate as it was without. I think if Stefan was referring maybe, Paul, to the carrier of the foil, then I think that's been addressed since that question with your point about the zero foil to landfill initiative, where as Paul explained, you can arrange for all that the waste carrier, which the consumer doesn't see, but which happens in the production process to then be collected and recycled appropriately. Because I think it's important as consumers, you will see this and you'll be worried about this, but it's also increasingly we'll see people being worried about how did this come to be and what happened in the process of getting this foil on the box. You know, for that signature that ends up on this box, all of this was gold. And so the initiative that Foilco is putting in place, which is about dealing with that production waste, is for me is the most important piece. You know, it's not the sexy piece, and it's not the piece that people see, but it's the piece that actually matters.
Mm.
Okay, thank you very much. Now let's get into the environmental arena. I have a lot of questions about environment. So I try to read them and then we can summarize the answers. The first question is from Jada T. I don't know what he means, but she says, how can we make an impactful luxury packaging project while considering the sustainability aspect? But I want to read some more questions because they're all regarding the environmental aspects. Schmambo says, with the rise of eco-friendly packaging, will that affect stock, foil, and or overall quantity of luxury packaging? Or with never trends, it is easier to recreate without compromising quality? And we have one more question from Katie Kubrak, who says, thus increasing a clear foil with no tint whatsoever makes it more sustainable to make it as it use no metallized pigmentation for exterior surface. Does it also use less energy during making process? Should having it clear makes the process more streamlined? And we have some more questions. Let me see in the chat. And well, start with these three questions, and then we go further. I don't know who is one. Who
I can
wants
talk
to
about
go first?
the relationship.
Okay.
I can talk about the relationship between luxury packaging design and the environment. And the big message, really, from me certainly, but I think the consensus is that the two are not mutually exclusive. So just because it's luxury isn't a carte blanche to just do whatever you want and ignore the environment. And you know, to be a luxury brand is to have a point of view. And we're seeing a lot of luxury brand actually investing a lot in sustainability. The way you do that in luxury is also, it's interesting nowadays because providers of materials, for instance, have done a lot of research to come up with materials that have much more improved sustainability credentials, but look the same as the beautiful materials. Like, so you can get, you know, papers with 40-50% post-consumer waste in them that look just as good as their virgin counterparts. So what it means from a design and from a brand's point of view nowadays is that it's no longer a style commitment to go to sustainability. So in the 90s, you might remember, if you're old like me, to have a recycled board meant it had to be gray and speckly and a bit ugly, and that was a real design statement. And that's no longer true. So it becomes a lot more of a statement of intent rather than a statement of aesthetic. It's about whether the brand really wants to do the right thing, and my experience is that a lot of them do. Whether or not they choose to communicate about it. So we're seeing brands choosing to do it in the background, but they don't shout about it, and other brands decide that it's a really worthy thing to be talking about. But certainly from a design point of view, it means it doesn't mean now that your packaging has to be ugly just because it's going to be sustainable. For me, I look at it more as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for consumers, for us all, to reframe what we think of as luxury packaging. So something that 10 years ago, it would have been all about how much gold you can have on it and the soft touch finishes, which come from lamination and things like that. And all these codes are being redefined. And now actually being luxury can be that you have a packaging that is amazingly sustainable. And that's, for me, is really exciting. But it's not just about, being good for the environment. I think it's good for creativity, and it's good for the relationship between consumers and brands. So I think that's the big message. They're not mutually exclusive. It takes a lot more work. At the moment, it probably costs a bit more money because it means you have to make choices that that are not going to be the middle of the road choices. So you have to have that real clear intent that's what you want to do, and that conviction that is the right thing to do. But the trend is definitely that's the normal, and brands that don't embrace it, whether they're luxury or non-luxury, will not survive. So it's a really positive trend that I'm seeing, and from a creative perspective, it makes it interesting. Katie's question was a bit more technical, so I might leave it to Paul.
Yeah. Okay. Connie?
Yeah, I actually also see that more and more of the big brands that we are working with are asking us for documentation how we handle our waste. So also here internal in our production processes, we are looking into what we're doing and how we're doing it. So we also try to do everything so environment friendly as possible. And that's why, as I said earlier, we stay totally away from using cover etch dyes, as this etching process is not so environmental friendly as it could be, and that's why we have all our processes in engraved brass to take care of the environment. All the waste we have is picked up by a metal guy who is recycle it, and it's going to be used further on in another industry. So, and actually we see it more and more that even smaller printing houses is also asked for documentation because they have these ISO certificates. So they have to be sure that what we are doing is also in line with what they want to show to their customers. So I totally agree. The environmental issues is very upfront for everybody. And we all have to take care of this and take a little bit of the responsibility as we can.
Okay, good. Paul?
Yeah, if I could answer specifically Katie's question there, where she was asking about the difference between a clear foil and a metallized foil. Metallized hot stamping foil is made with vacuum metallized aluminium. There's a very, very thin layer, less than a micron of vacuum metallized aluminium. Aluminium is the most plentiful metal in the world, so it's actually very most eco-friendly. What we say is, yes, there is a very slight amount of energy used more to make a hot stamping foil with a metallic effect rather than a clear, but it's very minimal. And then when it comes to the actual processing, the actual hot stamping of the product, it uses exactly the same energy, whether you're going to put a pigment foil or a holographic foil or metallic. It doesn't matter. The same amount of energy is used on each of these. What I would also say, just to add to the environmental side of things that Vincent was talking about, is that luxury, and it's not just luxury, but every market is looking at the environmental aspect of things. And what we're finding is that hot stamping foil is used more and more these days, where packs sometimes have to become more simple in a way, where we have to break down to use less plastics on there for a window envelope or some plastic element to it. They're finding it still needs to have that wow factor, that pick-me-up appeal. And of course, that's what hot stamping foil does. So you find that some of the packs are becoming a little bit more simple in their structure, but hot stamping foil is becoming more vital to still give that brand the appeal it needs to be bought. So the other advantage of, we've also mentioned but touched upon again, is recycled and uncoated boards are becoming more and more popular. People like the look of uncoated. They believe it's more environmentally friendly because it's recycled. But when it is recycled, it has elements in there that are a rough surface, for example. Well, by using hot stamping foil, the heat and the pressure used on that material will flatten that roughness and still give you that bright metallic finish. So, yeah, hopefully that answers it.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Now, there are some other questions regarding other aspects instead of environmental, but okay. One is for Vincent. Let me find it. Okay.
Is it about my jacket?
Of course, you know, especially from Italy, you know, we are fashion addicted, so of course, no. Okay, it comes from Luigi Carnovale. It comes from Italy, anyway, and Luigi Carnovale says collaboration as a way of working is a thread that runs through your projects. Is for you, Vince. Do you feel that this is a key in achieving a successful outcome?
The short answer is yes. I mean, firstly, it's great to see so many names pop up, familiar names I recognize from my various Instagram feeds and things. So it's great. It's great to see people engaging. Yes, collaboration is I mean, the best way for a project to fail is to avoid it, you know. So collaboration is key. I think as a designer, I do like to have a kind of early protected stage where you can kind of, you're allowed to do the creative thinking, but I don't see the process as being, I've done my bit, I hand it over, and I expect you to do your bit. So when I design, when I work with a client, I really advocate that, for instance, if it's a bigger brand, that will have a development team, an in-house development team, I always encourage that team to get involved when we're kind of 75% through the creative process. So we know enough about what we want to do that it's useful for that team, but there's enough flex left in the project that actually it's not so rigid, they can't do their work. And then that 25% is the handover period where we collaborate in terms of finalizing it. The reason I think that's great is because it's a way for me to remain involved in the development process. And so what that means, it's back to bringing the end result closer to what the vision was. You know, what I always say, what I design doesn't matter. What matters is what we end up producing, is what the consumer sees. So it's in my interest to make sure the two are as closely aligned as possible. And being involved in production and that collaboration is the key to that. So I hope that answers the question. But it's true that it's a thread through my way of working, my practice. I do enjoy. Also, I like production. You know, my grandfather and my father had factories. I just like nothing more than being on a shop floor. So watching those videos was a great treat for me.
You should have come over then.
I will. I will when I can.
What I would say as well in the collaboration is I can never do the magic that Vincent does with design. I'm not a designer. I can't do the creativity of the cliches of the dies. But I know pretty much, and my team here at Foilco, we know everything about hot stamping foil. Just pick up the phone, send us an email, ask us questions. We'll send you catalogs. Collaboration, the beauty of collaboration is bringing together all these elements with the most amount of knowledge from each of those sectors. So you've seen, you know, from Vincent creating that artwork, from Connie then turning it all to 3D, to doing the cliche, to us then choosing the range of foils. what's achievable. We shouldn't ever close ourselves off to anybody else. And we speak, of course, we speak to our customers, the printers, but I love nothing more than speaking to the designers, to the brands, asking them what they want from us. You know, that's where clarity came from. We had a conversation with Vincent and we made a foil for him. Hopefully it'll be used on some more of his designs this year.
But also to take away the mistake about doing multi-level, for instance, or structured dies with the foiling. Many designers stay away from that because they're a little bit afraid of how do I prepare these things so it gets to the result that I'm actually looking for, even to a point where they even know that it is possible to achieve this effect. So that's why it is so important, as we discussed earlier, that the sooner we can get into this process with the designer, the better.
Okay, thank you very much. Going on the question of how to work, there's a question by Pia Backhausen, who asked, she's a graphic packaging designer too, and she asked, addressed to Vincent, when you are ready to show your client your packaging idea, for instance, the Elton John box, do you start showing your client an electronic 3D version to get the idea approved, or do you make a cardboard makeup?
It's a good question. It kind of depends on the project. Like if I design a bottle, then the CGI, the drawing comes in handy. When it's more of a like a card packaging project, I think certainly being able to get in the hands of a client the right material, as early as possible is best. You have an early stage where you can show a CAD. I tend to show like 2D elevations that are produced in Illustrator, but I don't take it much further than that. I don't tend to produce like a really glossy CGI of a box, because it's all about the experience. It's not always practical to make a full-on box. I mean, for this, yes, the short answer is I knew exactly what I wanted, and we made a sample, and that got signed off in about 5 minutes. So that shows the power of actually putting something in the client's hands and make sure they just fall in love with it. Where that's not practical, for perfect reason most of the time, you're able to do a bit of a halfway house where you can show materials. So I have a whole, let's see if I can show you, I have like a whole material library where I can pull from various papers. Having that relationship with the various suppliers means I can get samples of materials. Bringing back to foil, for instance, with the Foilco guys, I'm able to say, I want to do some kind of metallic blue over white, and they're able to kind of say to me, we've got those kind of 3 or 4 options, and they foil them for me on the cards, and that's super quick. So I can go to a client and say, this is what it would look like. And that's a lot more powerful than a PDF. Nobody wants to look at a PDF, but everybody loves playing with things. And that's something I've learned really early on in my career, is put something physical on the table that they can play with, and you're halfway there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much. There is one more technical question. Is about programs. Computer programs. Someone that I can't find anymore, but asked for knowing which is the kind of computer program do you use? I think it's addressed to Vince and Connie.
Yeah. From our point of view, we are using ArtCamp as one of our 3D programs to produce the actual, or to create the actual 3D before we send it out to our CNC machine. So ArtCamp is the most used in our house for the 3D. I know you can also create 3D from Photoshop and other programs, but we actually use ArtCamp.
Okay. Vincent?
Sorry, I was waving at Paul who's taking pictures.
Yeah, selfishly.
Programs, mostly, the process, the key to the process is really the thinking and then the sketching. After that, yes, there's a creative suite, and it's the usual I use, but they're not what makes a client say yes. When I designed this molten brown bottle, I had a whole PDF, and there was some of the roots that I thought were really good. I made really glossy renders of, and then I had this design which was about a 25 mil high sketch made with the pencil, and that's the one the client pointed on a whole page of sketch, because I like to do sketch books sometimes, and they kind of completely ignored the pages of glossy renders I had and went to that little sketch in the corner. So the way to a client's heart and the unlock to a project isn't in the map. It's in your head and it's in your pencil.
Okay, Vincent, there is one more question. You mentioned, Chris Wilson says that you mentioned the physical samples and example playing an important part in selling the concept. How has the recent restriction of COVID impacted your processes working with clients?
It just means I'm on a first name basis with my DHL guy. Mostly, but we've still I'm redesigning packaging for a fashion brand at the moment, and we can't get around it. We have to make samples, we have to review prototypes, and the way we do that is just I get boxes of I'll show you, break the magic a bit, but my in the corner of my office is just full of boxes, because every day I receive 3 brand boxes of samples, and it's boxes from the supplier in Italy and bags from a supplier in Asia, and it's you just have to continue. I've been quite fortunate that the work has continued. I think brands are seeing that design work needs to carry on, because the world needs to be redesigned. People, we will all come at the end of that, and we won't want to slot back into the world as it was. So newness is going to be more important than ever, and because packaging is such long lead times, now is the time to do the design and the development, so that we're ready for when the world wakes up. So it's taken some adapting, but we've managed. I hope everybody's managed to carry on some form or another as well.
Okay, one more question. Is mock-up presentation getting more and more crucial in a product development project for an end user or brand? You're looking for mock-up presentation.
I don't know about more and more. I think for me it always was. I got to a point in my career where I was showing PDF, pages and pages of PDF, and I realized the clients weren't engaging with them. So like I said, putting physical things on the table, certainly from my perspective, is really important. I don't know if Paul and Connie have experiencing that in terms of the request for R&D on the R&D side rather than the production side.
We actually see the same, and we have a lot of designers and customers asking for sample packs to show ideas of what you can do and how you can do it. I don't know if we're still on or what happened here.
Yeah, we're good. I think so. Let's assume we are.
Actually, what you can ask for from us is this sample pack, where we have a lot of different samples inside with inspirational material of what you can do, and try to push again boundaries for not standing jobs but special jobs. And again, as I also experienced with Vincent, he was very surprised of how we just worked out from his samples. He sent to me the file, and the next thing he saw was actually the 3D. Many customers will also receive the 3D, where we have put the actual 4-color image on top of that, so they can simulate like a mock-up what it would look like in the end. And many is asking for that. So yeah, I agree with you, Vincent. Mock-up, more or less digital or in hand, is really important.
In terms of mock-up, I know Vincent's mentioned it very briefly there, but we're more than happy. We've got a full testing facility here where we're more than happy to put any of our foils onto a range of boards. selfish plug here, but I'd say to everybody, look at our website. We've done a lot of work on our website lately. You can actually pick a range of our foils, and there's a drop-down box there where you can pick a range of our foils to be put onto a range of boards. If the board isn't listed there, send us some. And what we'll do is we'll put down either your logo or one of our own logos onto that board and send it back to you. And it aids and speeds up that decision-making process. If you see, like, for instance, if you see the gold, the right shade of gold on that red board, it makes the decision quicker what you're going to use on that Elton John project and make it beautiful.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about, Paul, isn't it?
Yes.
Where, I mean, this one is just a white board because for that particular case, I was looking for white. But you've done them for me in the past with black board or any color I wanted. I mean, I use that service a lot. I don't know. I hope you don't end up getting flooded with requests for postcards. But because I use that service a lot, I had these guys make one of my dies for me, and that just gives me that extra level of personalization in my meeting with clients. But
my guys in the sample department and the testing center here might be a bit worried about this plug, but I'm more than happy to say to people, what we want to do is make it easier for people to specify for stamping foil. So anything we can do to aid that and to speed up the decision-making process through the prototype stage, get in touch with us.
Okay, thank you very much. One more question. I think the last one, because of time, a question of time, but anyway, is for Connie. Someone asked us, what makes brass tolling more environmental to copper one?
Because we are not using any chemicals to produce a brass die. To produce a copper etched die, you are using chemicals. It's kind of an acid to etch the copper die, and that's not environmental friendly. In our process with the brass engraving, you are absolutely using any chemicals at all. You are using the plate itself. You engrave the plate, and all the waste you get is all these small spoons, as you can see here, like this, all big pieces, and all that waste goes out and will be picked up here in our house to be recycled for further use. So that's the main difference, chemical-free process in our house.
Okay, thank you very much. I had 1 hour of time and I spent 1 hour and a half. So I have to close this webinar. I have to thank you, all the attendant people, for being with us from the very first moment to the end. I thank our speakers, Connie Dreyer, Vincent Bilger, Paul Hornby, and I thank you for your to share with us your experience and to be very, very clear in answering, and I hope to see you once again on our platform, and I thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.